we go, look at that. Completely in camera, that's fun. Today I'm gonna show you guys one of my absolute favorite portrait techniques so that you can go and replicate it for your next photo shoot. I've got my lovely model Manny over here that once again very generously donated his time. We're gonna show you 3 different ways of creating this effect, and I'm even gonna sneak in a cost-effective way to shoot images just like these that I think a lot of you are gonna be able to relate to in your environment. I know we don't all have a studio space to shoot out of and 10 lights at our disposal. Some of us do, and I'll go over how to shoot a maximalist version of these images as well, but I also want it to be accessible to even new photographers who just picked up their first speedlight, but you'll have to stick around till the end for that. So as long as you think that these images are cool, in the next 10 minutes or so, you should be perfectly equipped to shoot some for yourself. Let's get into it. All right, so this is our first setup. This is gonna be kind of round 1 of the shutter drag portraits between moving the camera, moving the lights, or moving the subject. So, like I said, first things first, we're gonna move the camera. I think this is gonna be the most relatable to the majority of you guys because you can do this without having a tripod. You can just, having it handheld is technically adding shake into the camera. To shoot a shutter drag, you're gonna need a slow shutter speed, you're gonna need a continuous light, and a flash. The flash is there to freeze that motion, and the continuous light is there to create that drag, that blur, those colorful lights that we're gonna see in the image. As with any shutter drag, with or without flash, we're gonna start by lowering our shutter speed. So in this case, I've got it at 1/4, but you kind of just experiment with how much motion you're putting in, and from there you'll be able to determine how much shutter drag you wanna include. So since I'm shooting at f11 for this to create a completely black frame, that flash starts to creep really close to full power. I think right now it's at 1/4 power, which is still giving us plenty of leeway for freezing the motion. But just something to keep in mind when you're shooting with strobes, the higher power you demand from them, the slower the flash duration is going to be, so the more you'll get a bit of that blur, and you won't be able to freeze that motion as well. So let's try to introduce some motion. I've got it on the tripod, I've got it on a ball head, so I'm just going to move it like that. But any way you introduce motion into your camera is going to create a shutter drag for this example. So let's try it out. And one last tip before we start, I think one thing that really works well is to set your camera to a self-timer. So like that, it creates like a little time between you and the model to get ready for the shot. Ready, Manny? Let's get this shot. Loosen up my ball head here. And 1, 2, 3. 2-second timer. There we go, there's our shot. I can go darker than that. I can go slower than that. Let's see here. I think maybe this guy. Let's cut the ambient light from you guys for just a sec. It might be affecting our shot here. 1, 2, 3. You ready, Manny? So, all right, so I fired off 2 examples here to start, and I think they're still a little bit too bright. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add a little bit more contrast in the shot. We're gonna darken this a little bit. What else are we gonna do here? Maybe extend the shutter drag even more so we get even more motion. But essentially, that's the trick. The more lights you add in the background, the more you can play with this effect. But as long as you have one light, it doesn't need to be ungelled, it can just be any color you want. But as long as you have one light that is freezing the motion, and you have some continuous lights in the background with a shutter drag, with a slow shutter speed, you're golden. That's all it is. And then you just kind of play with it and you just shoot as many as you can. Let's try a few more slightly different settings and we'll see what we can get. Try this again. Let's go here. See what we got. 1, 2, 3. Let's go, Manny. You ready for me? Oh, got a real slow one there. There we go. Now we're getting dark. Okay, that's what I was looking for. So maybe a tad bit brighter on the flash. 1/3 of a stop. Let's try that again, Manny. 1, 2, 8. Ooh, there we go. Now we're starting to have some fun with it. Ooh, even brighter on the flash, another 1/3 of a stop. Let's try that again. So I don't know if you guys saw that, but there's no real rhyme or reason to it. You're just kind of spinning around and hoping for the best. But I do notice that obviously if the light is on the right side of the frame for me, if I'm panning to the left, then it's gonna at least keep the drag behind the client, or behind the Manny in this case. Whereas if I pan to the right, it's gonna go in front of his face, which may or may not be what you want, but usually for portraits, it's probably not what you want. I don't know, this one's kind of cool. Let's keep with that. Let's go on, let's move on. All right, part 2 for shutter drags. We're gonna be moving the light. The camera is on a self-timer. It's got 2 seconds. So I'm gonna press P on my laptop, which is my shortcut, and it's gonna fire the flash, and it's gonna give us that shot. Now, I'm gonna do the same thing, but we're gonna move this light behind here and just see what we get. So let's go. There we go, we're starting to get some blur there. Cool, there we go, that's kind of what I'm thinking of. So obviously this works slightly differently for studio style setup stuff. You can have people waving, you know, batons in the background for you if you want. But this is more meant to mimic, you know, working at an event or shooting a nightclub or something where you got lights that are just moving in the background. So that's something that you can just utilize out and about. Whether your camera moves or not, you can still create a shutter drag. You just have something slightly more rigid, slightly more structured when you have everything set up on a tripod like this. So let's do a few more examples, see what we can get. That almost looks like a John Gress portrait. All right, let's try this again. Ooh, there we go. We're starting to get a little bit of a, that's cool. Let's try that again. And again, you can experiment with this. You can play slightly longer or slower shutter speeds, use slightly different motions. That's kind of neat, you know? If you're doing something, I don't know, like some kind of fancy editorial. Headshot of a rising CEO. Yeah, there we go. It's cool. So that's a way that you can include a shutter drag without drastically moving your camera around, still having a relatively set up studio, and just include some either the moving lights that are happening in the background or just moving the lights in the background. So next we're gonna do the third one, and after that we're gonna show you exactly how to do the same kind of setup like this, but for a fraction of the price of all this stuff. All right, so third and final setup. We've got here, we're gonna move the person. In this case, it would be a lot easier if Manny was a real life person, but in this case, what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna tie Bijou's leash, see what we can get out of this, and we can create blur only in him and not in the light, which is kind of the opposite of what we just talked about. So try 3, let's just remove the crop so it doesn't add that to our shot. Are we still, yeah, we are. All right, let's give it a go. How'd that go? Oh, it looks like we're, why is it so much brighter? What's going on here? Oh wait, no, I know what happened. That light's on. Okay, let's try that one more time. Anyway, we're gonna tie this rope. We're gonna pull on Manny a little bit, see if we can get a bit of motion. We gotta be decently drastic with it, or else it doesn't show up too much. I think I'm gonna go even slower. I guess I could just do it like this without the rope. When I thought of this idea, I thought I'd be behind the tripod, but oh, there we go. Look at that. Look at that, completely in camera. That's fun. All right, let's do a few more here. So the secret, I think, is going that way. Oops, I think I did that a bit too early, but still, look how cool that looks. Camera doesn't move, light doesn't move, Manny moves. Look at that. If that's not a cover art for a band, I don't know what is. That's fantastic. I love that. That looks so cool. Let's try a few more here. Maybe moving back and forth. Yeah, here, let's see if we can move them with the camera, towards the camera at least. Well, that's kind of cool. It's got a bit of like a 3D vibe to it. A bit of a ghosting, doubling effect going on. But yeah, you can, you know, play with that shutter speed, slow it down a little bit more. Let's go even one more here. Let's do a whole second. Let's see what that looks like. That was open for a while. Hell yeah, that's super neat. All right, so since I do have the rope that I can do it from there, let's do one more shot where I'm moving the camera and I'm moving Manny. I can't be moving the light at the same time, unfortunately, but let's just see what it looks like. We're gonna do a few here. Looks like a second is maybe a bit too much for this, but let's, there we go, we're getting somewhere. There we go. Looking pretty good. Let me change angle for you guys. You're not looking at my butt. All right, so one last one over here. All right, I've got my ball head here loosened up. I've got my focus set. I've got my self-timer set. And we're gonna pull on Manny. We're gonna move the tripod and see what we get. Cool. All right, we're starting to combine some motions together. I'd like to move it the other way, but I'll have to do it with the other hand. Ah, there we go, that's the shot. Ah! Let's try a little Dutch angle because we forced ourselves into it. Oh, a 90s favorite right there. And let's try, since I got you guys here, let's just try one more. Moving Manny and moving the light at the same time. That's a little bit closer, you know, just in case. It's not in your shot, it's not my shot. All right, let's do this here. Amazing. Hey, there we go. That gets the effect across. Let's try a couple more, maybe one more here. There we go. So we kind of saw a little bit that when the camera stays still, you get away with a slightly slower shutter speed. But when you're moving the camera, it likes to be a little bit faster, or else you kind of get a little bit too much moving around. But when you control that motion, you can get something that looks blurry and moving, but still sharp at the same time. And I think that's just so fun and so creative. You can throw in a third flash, a fourth gel, and just go crazy with it. So experiment for yourselves and let me know how it goes for you. So how do you do this when you just got into photography, or you only have one flash, or you're on the go and you can't carry 5 C-stands with you? You can create this effect very easily if you're someone like a nightclub photographer or an event shooter, weddings, things like that. This is the most portable and cost-effective way of shooting shutter drags because it's just one flash. But you do need an environment that provides you the rest of that excitement. It gives you less control, but it also allows you to photograph something like a wedding reception and come out with images that look like this, and images that look like that. Images I shot literally 10 years ago that still look fun and current for these people that look back at the memories today. It's a great way to show action or chaos within a single frame. To shoot something like this, all you need is an on-camera flash and a shutter speed somewhere between a second and a fifth of a second, like we were talking about. Then you want to underexpose your scene so that the only thing visible in your frame are the brightest parts of the image, like the lights in the venue. This is going to be different for each scenario, but it keeps you on your toes. When you fire your shutter and you move your camera, or the lights move themselves, that's where you introduce that blurry line, the color from that light. And then your on-camera flash has an even shorter flash duration than those big strobes, so it's not even something you have to worry about. I think it works really well when you shoot backlit against LED lights because you get this 180-degree contrast between your flash on the camera and the lights coming into your sensor. Either way, your subjects are stuck in the middle, perfectly frozen in time, or perfectly blurry. These kinds of shots are real hit or miss, so I wouldn't go banking my entire shoot on them. You'll get lucky every 10 frames, but use this technique more as a novelty than a, this is all I do. Anyway, come back to this video once you've tried it out, and let me know how it turned out. Maybe subscribe if you haven't, and I'll catch you guys all next week.